The vast majority have no idea at all what money actually is and how money itself works. We're going to learn exactly how all that works, and then as well, we'll have a look at the definition of wealth. What does it mean to be wealthy, to have wealth?
The year 1800 going past 2000. You can see that we start at 50 and it goes down. So from the year 1800 to the year 1900, prices went down by 50%. Let me say that again. Prices in the year 1900 were 50% lower than they were in the year 1800. Of course, when the Fed comes around, all that changes. We go off the gold standard for World War I, World War II, straight up to 1971, the amazing year when we went off the gold standard and went full on fiat. And inflation at this time goes through the moon. From 1971 to today, inflation goes up, straight up in a vertical line. I also want to point out that this time frame between about 1870 and 1913, we call that the classical gold standard. And if it looks like this line is incredibly smooth, that's because it is. Per year, inflation barely ever went up and deflation went down at a clip of about 3% per year. Not too bad, was it? Real growth, 7%. Interest rates on the 10-year, about 4%. 3% deflation, 4% nominal growth, and real wage growth throughout the entire century. We'll be able to save a lot more money. If we can maintain a limited currency supply in a free market capitalist society, prices will always go down because we're getting more goods and services always created at a lower and lower price. Any type of standard that would limit the amount of currency created, that is the ideal, that is the objective, and that's what creates this type of economic boom. Even more solutions created by having a fixed currency, which results in healthy deflation. It starts by kneecapping the government so they can't spend like drunken sailors. They have to balance their budget. This is reducing the size of government. It increases personal freedom and business freedom. Getting richer and richer every single year because their expenses would be going down without any help from the government. Making a 7% return on that over 35 years, that's $1 million plus that they have in the bank as a household when they go to retire. But it gets even better. Remember, that $1 million is gaining in purchasing power every single year. So at the end of that 35 years, that 1 million would have 2.8 million in purchasing power. And let's go back to step number 1 and remember that the amount that the average household and average person could save each year would go up and up because their bills, their expenses go down and down. So your savings would increase and your purchasing power on that savings would increase as well. So just a few of the benefits of having a limited supply of currency, which creates healthy deflation in the economy, would be eliminating bubbles, limiting government's power, and almost eradicating poverty. We can see now why the Fed and the government want to have at least 2% inflation per year.
You're getting robbed. Yeah? Inflation. The elites are robbing you of what you deserve. But in a true free system of deflation, yes, as an Australian citizen, you deserve hundreds of thousands of dollars even just on Centrelink. And if you're working down at the cash register down at your local supermarket You deserve a wage of literally billions of dollars. Every Australian citizen would at minimum be a millionaire. And then every working Australian citizen would be a billionaire. And that's how it should be right now. And the only reason it's not is because we're being robbed by the rich, and that's why they create a constant inflation of 2% annually. You're getting hundreds of thousands of dollars every year just on Centrelink. You're buying nice properties for $5,000, top of the line brand new cars for $2,000 instead of hundreds. Okay? And your milk and bread will only cost like 5 cents for 4 litres of milk. I can show the maths of how we can definitely do this in the next 30 to 50 years. In 100 years' time from now, with my economic plan, the current $2.40 2-litre bottle of milk in exactly 100 years' time will cost minus $4.80. So you'll get a free 2-litre bottle of milk and given $4.80 when you purchase a bottle of milk. So when you buy milk, you receive money and milk. It's like a mind-blowing concept and idea, because people are so used to living in poverty that they think that you have to buy things with money. They don't understand that if your economy is that good, when you buy things, sometimes you don't have to have money. Sometimes when you buy things, you're given money and the thing. And if you can't have that, it's because you're a slave and you live in poverty. So it might sound crazy, but it's because you're used to being given scraps. Now, obviously, there will be skeptics who will say, oh, but how? How could we possibly have an economy so stable and secure that you could just go to the shop and, you know, your basic groceries, like milk, bread, things that are a few dollars, would just be given away for free? How is that possible? When you go buy a meal, how does it work that you get free sauce? Or in some places, you'll get a free bag. If you can understand how that works, how shops can give away free bags with the groceries you buy or sauce with your meals, then you can understand that if people are just a lot more well off, they can obviously give away things like milk and bread and sugar and anything else that's only a few dollars at the moment, because then it will cost nothing. To further wrap our heads around this and to create a better context in which we can fathom this, remember, again, you can get free sauce or things with, you know, or straws and napkins and things. You get these free with a meal that you may purchase, okay? Understanding that basic principle, and then picturing a constantly growing economy with healthy deflation where costs constantly go down. It's not like they just go down a bit here and there. No, it's a constant, steady decline of roughly 3% every year. Everything costs roughly 3% cheaper every single year. Easily, by the time they're 16, every single person would have an equivalent home to what you're looking at on the screen right now. Hypothetically, impossibly, that technology doesn't advance at all from this point forward. For 100 years. If we just have exactly what we have now in 100 years' time, but a healthy economy, this house is what even every homeless Australian, every single citizen would own by the age of 16. Easy. Simple. So every 16-year-old has this home paid off in their name. No debt. Okay? Every 16-year-old, every single child in the country owns one of these homes for themselves. All right? And this worker, this young worker at Woolworths, makes on average at least a minimum, okay, at least $600,000 of income a week just working at Woolworths as a 16-year-old. They will be a millionaire in a couple of weeks of work. So that means in a few years, they'll definitely be a billionaire. So every Australian citizen at the age of 16 will own a modern home in this healthy economy. So in that context, in the context where every 16-year-old has a modern home better than the average adult today, and they'll be a billionaire just working down at your local Woolies, how would it not be the case that when you go to the shop, you'd get milk and bread and sugar and all these cheap things for nothing? It'd be just given to you for free. And you'd be paid to take it. How would you not be paid $5 to take 2 litres of milk? If every 16-year-old has this home and there'll be billionaires, how would milk and bread and all these cheap things not be free for everybody? It's not like anyone wouldn't be able to afford it. It's not like anyone would be going bankrupt or, getting into debt because they're giving away thousands and thousands of bottles of free 2-litre bottles of milk every day. Nobody's going to go into debt because of that, because you can become a millionaire by doing 2 weeks of work, minimum wage, down at your local Woolies. So if you understand that context of how abundant and rich the whole society would be in a healthy economy over the next 100 years if we actually had healthy deflation, and again, all it would take, we don't have to change anything, but we just need to have a fixed currency. No more fiat, just a fixed currency, like a gold standard or something. It doesn't have to be gold, just some standard. You can't just print more money, which makes the value of the money go down. So that just over time, the value just goes up. So that means everything gets cheaper. It's really basic stuff. You just got to stop printing more money. And then the money actually gains value over time instead of just losing value. And yeah, over 100 years, the country will be that rich and that abundant. So there'll be a lot more than just milk and bread that will be given away for free. Much more. That's just the tip of the iceberg. And so with this, you should have a general understanding of global economics and how my economic plan can make Australia and Australian citizens the richest people to have ever lived in human existence. The definition of wealth. The simple distinction in the definition is that wealth is not our property or things, but wealth is our state of contentment and well-being, us essentially feeling that we have enough with what we have. So wealth is related to what you own, your property, but it's not just your property. The actual proper definition of wealth is how you feel you have enough with what you have. It's not what you have, but that feeling of satisfaction that you don't need more. So that's the actual definition of wealth, and why a lot of the time people do confuse it with having things, because if you don't have the things you need, well then you're not wealthy and you're lacking, and that's living in poverty. It's not a good way to live. So you definitely need things. You need to focus on owning property and building up, your assets essentially, but that's not your wealth. You being content with that is your wealth. And understanding that basic distinction, you can understand and better manage your wealth as it's tied into your well-being. A lot of people work their lives away to make assets and income, money, the property, but they don't actually make any wealth because they don't tie it into their well-being. So they damage their health, they work their lives away, and they don't really have much to show for it. They don't enjoy it. A lot of people don't enjoy going to work and to pay their bills. So they're not really making the true wealth that they could be making if they had that focus on enjoyment instead of just assets. But again, that doesn't mean you ignore the assets and just focus on enjoyment, be some tripped out hippie or something. You should still focus on the assets and build up your assets and property, but with that main focus being your well-being as an individual.